Welcome, jewelers. Welcome all to another episode of Orange Energy here. My name is Mega, joined by Trade, T Heat, some legends. We're talking crypto, we're talking macro, and we're talking markets here. A whole lot has gone down. We're going to jump straight into it with a video here. Kick it off.
Well, this is it. The crypto treasury company strategy is finally imploding. Today has been the worst performance across the board of all the treasury companies, including Sharplink Gaming, which I've always mentioned, is down something like 8%. Tom Lee's company, Bitmine, I think is what it's called, BMT. I have to look up the name of the ticker.
Spitting the whole time.
That's down 11% today, 25% in only 5 days, and MicroStrategy is down another like 8% today. When will it end?
8%, bro.
Ultimately, like I've been saying, these all are going to normalize at an MNAV of 1. That's right. They're basically going to trade as though they're ETFs for Bitcoin. The bigger issue at that point is, what's the value of holding a corporate treasury when you can end up having an ETF for the underlying asset, in this case, Bitcoin? If that ultimately realizes or manifests, you could end up seeing something like MicroStrategy trade at a sub 1 MNAV, which would be devastating for the stock and for shareholders.
What is MNAV?
Okay, granted, today Ethereum is down substantially. Bitcoin is slightly down, but all of these companies are down a significant percent relative to the underlying assets, hundreds of percentage points. So these stocks are down, what, 200-300% more than the underlying asset? They haven't been going up at that same rate. So what's the purpose of ultimately holding any of these at this point in time?
Couldn't tell you.
The theoretical value is that there's some accretive element here.
Okay.
You know, you own MicroStrategy shares and you end up with more underlying Bitcoin. You buy SBET and you end up with more Ethereum. And the same thing goes for all of them. So far, that's not manifesting, though. So what's happening? Tom Lee, who I had not mentioned before, probably should be categorized and grouped in alongside all these other people. Michael Saylor.
I mean, they are promoters.
Joe Lubin.
They are promoters of.
It's gotten absolutely disgusting, and the level of shareholder not performing their fiduciary responsibility to shareholders has just absolutely exploded in recent days. And this week kicks off, and it only continues to accelerate. When will this end? I feel like shareholders are.
All right. So he took a long time and ranted, demonstrably spitting the entire time, about a whole bunch of crap, and then said what his real issue is, which is MicroStrategy and these are these treasury companies holding up to their fiduciary obligation, right? That's what he's trying to hold them accountable for, but he's very clickbaity. And it's a fair question to ask if you're in equities, because that's what equities do. That's what the SEC and things are there for, to make sure that you are holding your fiduciary obligation. The whole thing about correction, 8%, 20%, 24%, he's hyperventilating on that, and that's not the biggest focus. So tonight we are going to talk about what is this thing he's bugging about. What is this MNAV? What is the relationship when you're in crypto holding actual tokens, where you're in the stock market holding the underlying values? Because for the longest time, some in crypto say, for the growth of this industry, we need to have crypto is going to seep into everything. For those who have this long-term mindset, long-term vision is that crypto is going to seep into everything. Now that it is seeping into everything, what are the concerns? And should you be hyperventilating like our guy here? Is this thing is MSTR a Ponzi scheme, or do we have an explanation for it? And we're gonna dive into that a little bit tonight. We're gonna share our thoughts. And what do you guys think about just the initial things that he's saying before we even dig into what MNAV is? What are your guys' thoughts, first reactions to this videos when it went viral?
Seems as if that's been the question of the week here, Trade. Is Master MicroStrategy, I like to call it Master in my head just with the ticker,
Strategy.
MSTR, is MicroStrategy a Ponzi? You know, here we have Choose Rich Nick, of course, in this video. You know, talking, and he's had a few of these rants this week, which has been surprising, kind of out of the blue, but it's been really relevant amongst those communities of the Bitcoin treasury companies. You know, why do we not directly run with Bitcoin when we're supposed to be hyper leveraged, 3x, whatever it may be, on these multiples? But that's to find out. And I got a lot of questions for you, Trade, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say. But Teehee, what's your thoughts on these Bitcoin or treasury companies in general for crypto?
It's a curious topic for me because I know last episode we talked a fair amount just about Bitcoin in general, but I had mentioned how I got into the ETF side of things within a IRA account for myself and some of the benefits of that. And so you have that as an option now for people. But then you also have these Bitcoin treasury companies or Ethereum treasury companies that have definitely been making waves. Isn't it just strategy now? Is the new micro?
It is just strategy, yes.
Right. Yeah, it's too much for me to keep up with. But I don't know, man. I'm questioning it. I wonder what the point. I mean, I understand some of the legitimate reasons for these treasury companies, but it's got a little hint of sketch to me as well. So I'm excited to get into it tonight for sure.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, one more thing before you jump in, Trade. Just to kind of outline some of the other changes that have happened. Michael Saylor and team, of course, at Strategy, they had a few guidelines, and I wonder if you're going to jump into these regarding, when they're going to issue debt, what kind of debt they may issue, when they're going to do stock buybacks and such to buy Bitcoin. But people on the outside, the shareholders really are just wondering how any of this helps the stock itself, because at the end of the day, that's what they're buying for. Some of these people, I wonder, and I don't know how you feel, but I wonder if a majority of these investors are Bitcoin holders as well, or if they're TradeFi users that want this hyper leveraged ability to touch Bitcoin.
So you mentioned a key word there, which is leverage, right? And for all the hyperventilating he's doing, first of all, if you look at MicroStrategy, the key asset that we're talking about here, it's down it went as low as about 27% over the last few days. So it's a pretty hefty correction, right? Is this something to be concerned about when it comes to a stock? Yes, the stocks generally don't move this aggressively within like a 1 week period. But when you look at the thing that he's most keen on, which is the MNAV, there's something called options in the stock market. And what Michael Saylor has done is that he has structured and built MicroStrategy like an option. And that's basically what this is. And so you would see during corrective periods larger corrections in a asset, and on the upside you have an opportunity to have a X multiplier depending on where the arbitrage is. And so again, when we go into a bear market, yeah, you may see something like MicroStrategy go down 80% as a correlated high risk asset. So to me, what he's doing is not illegal. It's not a Ponzi scheme. As you say, for individuals who are looking for a higher leverage multiplier, for an asset they're holding in the equity market, you can look at MicroStrategy. Now, are there other? Can you just go buy options? Sure. Are there higher risk, higher returns from options? Sure. So he's just basically providing a safer option type opportunity for people who are holding the common stock. Right? It's not even about the Bitcoin at all. If you're holding a common stock, you now have an options type equity like MicroStrategy, like a Coinbase. But Coinbase, I would say, is a little more stable. So to answer your question, if you're going into something like MicroStrategy, even if you're somebody like Thiek, who has a long-term outlook on something like this, you would have to be ready to be prepared for this thing to correlate to the crypto market, for it to maybe even go further, correct further, because it doesn't have the underlying asset. But you're also, if you're a long-term person, sitting with the opportunity, if MicroStrategy continues to do what it's doing, to benefit from it in the long run. You just have to have a higher risk tolerance of 80% swings in bear markets, and that's just about it. So that's kind of like my first thoughts on it. But if you have that sheet of guidances and adjustments, people were upset that they said they wouldn't sell Bitcoin, and they sold Bitcoin. And if you look at it, the last time they bought Bitcoin, at least the last time they reported to the SEC, was between July 28th and August 3rd. So not only are we gearing and having more volatility market going towards possibly a bear market, we're also seeing higher leverage. And I just lost my train of thought here because my bunnies are being fed. But yeah, if you had that list, you can just show it.
Yeah, I'm about to pull that up right now since you mentioned it. This is the MicroStrategy equity guidance. And real quick before because some of these terms are, I guess, maybe new for people who may not have touched these Bitcoin treasury companies, but just to explain, what is the MNAV in your best explanation, Trade?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's just go ahead and share. I was making fun of you can show my share screen if it's showing really quickly.
Oh yes, sir. Got it up there. Oh, I gotta remove mine. There we go.
All right, for all you nerds and stuff like that, you can go figure out what this comes out to be. Okay, you can literally just go figure out what this comes out to be. But it explains it as you have the enterprise value, which would be the common stock, the Bitcoin NAV, where it's the Bitcoin holdings times the spot price, right? So whatever the actual benefit of the underlying value is, so whatever that additional value Bitcoin is giving the enterprise value asset, that's the multiplier. And then you have what's the last thing you have? You have the stock itself, the multiplier, and then you have the movement of Bitcoin itself. And then you have, I'm missing one more aspect to that. Then you have, what is the X multiplier? What does that give you as a multiplier? When it comes to stock options, every contract is a multiplier of 100, or let's say 99, because if you buy one, is 100% multiplier. So that's how it works in options. If you calculate this, the question is, what percent multiplier does that give you? So far this year, it's given MicroStrategy, as Bitcoin has went from $15,000 to now $124,000 at the highs. That's been what, a 5x, 6x for Bitcoin from MicroStrategy. And I'll pull up the chart really quickly for that same time period. If you look at a larger time frame, and again, this is just questions you ask yourself and this is what he's saying, but he's hyperventilating. If you ask yourself, for MicroStrategy, since Bitcoin made its turn, which was June of 2022, if I come to June of 2022, $24, okay, is where you were sitting. And at your highs, we'll take this ruler here. At your highs, am I drawing this right? This is wild. No way. Let me just lower this right here. There we go. Okay, so at your highs from the same time Bitcoin made its move, it's been a 2,000% return. So it does work like an option. Now, is it a 99 times multiplier like regular stop options are? Well, if you take what price do we have here? If you take $33, and again, this is just sometimes the quick little math that I do. So I didn't even plan to really go that deep into it. But if you take $337 divided by $33, that's a 10x multiplier. So for the same risk that you would have in the options market doing options, which is a 100x multiplier on each contract, you're now buying common stock. You're having to say this is safer than buying options because it's the actual, I can actually hold it, and I have a higher percent chance of return from when Bitcoin makes its move. There are other things in the ecosystem that are like this: your Riot blockchains, your Mara, your Coinbase. But what you may see is a 30% correction to the downside. And in bear markets, and I do believe we're going back to the bear market, in bear markets, without doing too much technical analysis, things tend to return to the area of mean, and MicroStrategy can be going to $165. If things get real crazy, things return back to their average moving line. This is the 200-week moving line on the monthly. And so in the worst case scenario, from the very, very top of $543, if let's say this was a bear market, you could be looking to meet that 200-week moving average around, let's say, $71, right? So there are quick calculations you can do with technical analysis, no matter what the narrative is and what's being pitched, to say this is my risk versus reward. And we put this video out there first because there are gonna be narratives. You're gonna get hit worse in the bear market, but you're setting yourself up for opportunity that's not as risky as options. But Michael Saylor is giving you an opportunity to have a options type common stock that's associated with a crypto. So that's my rendition of it.
So do you kind of follow his theory where he's kind of saying, firstly, he mentions it falling to or below 1 times MNAV, which is just plain and simple what he describes as an ETF base, a Bitcoin, for example, Bitcoin or Ethereum based ETF type of stock, if it's at 1 times MNAV.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, do you think, to build on that, do you think it has to like fall back down to terms with the market? Is that what you're saying? Kind of like a retraction in a sense where we have to like level out with the field of stocks because it's something so much bigger?
No, there's just bull markets, there's bear markets. All right, depending on what you're holding, it's going to be hit harder or it's going to be hit less. When you have risk assets, those get hit harder. So MicroStrategy decided to put a risk asset as an underlying layer to their common stock, and so you just have to be comfortable with the fact that when the market goes down, because the market doesn't stay up forever, and we're going to talk about that as we go down the line, the market won't stay up forever. There will be times where psychologically, emotionally, for a year or two, you will feel like you made the worst decision in your life by continuing to hold a stock that is down while the narrative is the world is coming to an end, right? And so if you have a higher risk tolerance, you can hold something like this. It doesn't mean it's a Ponzi scheme. Things that are related to crypto have been associated with Ponzi schemes for too long. And with this guy, for as long as he's been in the industry, he's going for clickbait. It's funny.
That's what it's felt like a
He's
little
going
bit.
for
And I do
clickbait.
respect some of his takes because I feel like he's a somewhat, he's got a lot of unique takes, I'll say,
Right.
to put it simply. But this one felt like an attack on strategy in
Right.
order to provoke the large audience that does support strategy, because there's a lot of naysayers even within the community.
Right.
But so for you, leading into our next topic, when does this bull market end? How much longer do we have, and what does this do for a stock like MicroStrategy finishing this bull and then going into the bear? Do we see even larger losses because it's a highly leveraged Bitcoin play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so that's a good segue. That's a good segue there. And somebody we were very familiar with tweeted something the other day. And I was doing my charts, and I was like, oh, my charts kind of align with what you're saying, and that's Workhorse. And the whole leverage conversation, MSRT, bull market, bear market conversation, that's important, because when you have leverage and the market is getting towards exhaustion and you're preparing for a possible change of momentum and direction, the mathematical leverage that's there also coincides with the human psychology and the human momentum. And so, yes, I think he's going to look like a fool, because we're going to have a little dip and we're going back to all-time highs for a blow-off top, at least in my estimation.
You're speaking of Nick. That video in essence is going to look.
He's going to look like a fool for a few months, and then he's going to turn up, because he's going to look like a genius. Because what happens in bear markets, and crypto has been going down less, but crypto is normally going down about 86 to 90% every bear market. It's not easy to sit in crypto and hold. In the stock market, it's normally only about 10 to 15%. If you go 20% down in the S&P 500, you've officially hit a bear market, right? So the leverage part and the momentum part is what I believe is going to make the bear market what it is coming up. But I do believe that we are completing, and we're going to see new all-time highs before that happens. And we'll get into that. But yeah, shout out to Workhorse. He said at Ramble for the Homies, traditional markets are looking spooky. S&P BP ratio is at 5.4%. He put a whole lot of hoopla in there. At the end of the day, to end unsustainable doesn't always mean short-term collapse. It means fragile, debt-laden foundations that could crack under pressure. Feels like a pullback is coming in traditional markets, but also feels bullish. And you can't help but feel that way. Not only if you kind of know what the fundamental layers of the current bull market is, but also to technical analysis. So I'm very bullish, very short-term, very bearish for the next year and year and a half. Any thoughts on what our guy Workhorse said before we jump into the charts and when the bear market could be coming?
It could be tomorrow. We'll see. we got a big speech tomorrow.
You're not worried. You're not taking no profit. You're not taking no profit at all.
It's fine.
Not yet. Let the money printers cook.
Let me. So T, we already know what T is. Mega, you're not taking no profit.
Oh, not yet. For me, I mean, no.
I didn't say not yet. I'm just asking you in general. At the end of the day, and this is the thing, you just got to act like basic. When this bull market completes, would you want to have taken profit?
Of course, yes, that's the ultimate goal.
Okay.
But then again, it depends what you're asking on. If we're talking alts, yeah, I'm looking to take profits on some of those. If we're talking the coin, the greatest asset in the world, Bitcoin, I'm not touching it. I'm grabbing these dips. As we said last time, if we touch 80, I'm fine. If we touch 160, I'm even happier. But I'm mad I didn't get to touch some more of those under 100Ks. You know what I mean? So I'm chilling ultimately, but I'm trying to take some alt profit. Yes.
Gotcha. So you are looking to take some profit, basically. The individuals will always have long-term assets, right? For the longest time, I had to buy XRP, didn't care what was going on. I had an end goal that I was looking to go to, just like Bitcoiners who bought at X. They had an end goal. They probably went 16 years without selling, but at some point, whatever strategy, pun to MSTR, whatever strategy they have in place has a time horizon on it. Someone like me likes to have my long-term assets continue to play, but I try to take advantage of the 4-year cycles as they happen to have liquidity to then do other things, in life. And a lot of times for me, it's altcoins. I've always used Bitcoin as the indicator for when to sell with my other coins. And so if you are in the bucket of feet, you're chilling. All you're doing is consuming information, seeing what's happening. A bear market happens, you're trying to find a better job so you can buy more of it, right? If you're somebody in my bubble who's trying to take profit, it's a very critical time in the market right now as we hit these highs. And there's been, let's say, a 4-year strategy executed, a 6-year strategy executed. Sometimes even if you're late into entering into the certain area in the market, you might say, let me try to run it up and take profit before it ends. What guidance are people using to try to do that? And a lot of times there's negativity in crypto because people don't have that guidance. They come in, they buy the top, they leave and say crypto's a scam, right? And so that's why I like to engage people in what their time horizons are. Whether you're a thief who's about to be 15 years, I'm along that 15-year boat with them, but I'm trying to snipe on big 4-year swings of profit that I don't mind paying taxes on because they're just nice astronomical profits. And so if you're looking to take some profit from your altcoins, the next question, and thanks for engaging with me here, Mega, of your altcoins, when would you be looking to sell them?
See, that's why I have you, my brother, Trade. But also, and I was going to add this on, but I'm glad you kind of made that point. For me, this is my first cycle to go through a whole round. So it's almost experiment number one. Last time I was on the tail end for sure of that bull run. So I was, in certain areas used as that exit liquidity, you know what I mean? Falling into the bear market. So this market, and I know we've already ran pretty well, but I'm hoping to kind of feel it out, time it out a little bit more into these fiscal prints, because we're going to see a lot of, hopefully some rate cuts here, and hopefully a lot of liquidity flow into, hard money, some good assets. And then with that always turns into the alt season that we're hoping for. We're all hoping for it. And so I've allocated a lot of my, dry powder into those plays, hoping, in essence, though, I guess if this helps you in any way see my ultimate vision, in essence, in hopes to get even more capital just thrown into Bitcoin after I take profits on those.
After you take profit.
That's where my mind is.
Yes. And I love that, right? Because when you do this, there's so many layers to this, right? You can just buy and hold. You can buy, hold, sell, and use those profits to trickle back in, and that becomes a wash where you play with house money, and the ability to do like 100,000% return is done from knowing how to do macro things. Ray Dalio, all these macro investors have done this for a while. So to every cycle, you have an ability to try to execute on those strategies, but where you're going with it is perfect to be able to take your profit with something like Coinbase, put it there in USDC, get 4.5% interest, and then at some point during a bear, you start articulating that back in there for whatever that next run is, while still accumulating that 1 or 2 or 3 things that you just won't budge on.
So I guess I have to pick your brain on a point you made there, because you do mention, of course, the play that I don't utilize enough is pulling into USDC, into stables while you take profit, because the idea with me taking profit in the alts is because what goes up must come down in terms of those things. So, but we do expect, of course, somewhat of a Bitcoin pullback during the bear. So would you recommend, and this is, I'm not going to hold you to it, but like, is that something you like to do? Take profit into stables, stack it, hold it, and then kind of time out again that bottom and maybe get a lower price on the coin itself?
Yes. And you can do that with everything but Bitcoin.
Right. Okay.
Do that with everything, because Bitcoin is something, especially if you are just starting to accumulate, or now it's even at the lowest at 15,000, it will take you quite some time to dollar cost average into that, right? And at this point, it's not something that's supposed to be sold. It's kind of like buying gold. So that's the only one you wouldn't do that strategy with,
right?
But that's why altcoins are there. And they eventually are what would feed you if you're just taking profit for life, or feed pulling back into your long-term investments. For me, number 1 and 2, XRP number 1, Bitcoin be number 2 in that fold. But I want to talk about when the bear market is coming. I'm going to show you guys a few charts to show you that we're in exhaustion. And when we are in exhaustion doesn't just happen right away. It takes some time, right? You got to play at least 5 basketball games before exhaustion hits. So this is Walmart. All right. Walmart has had an incredible run along with your Bitcoins from 2000 and it broke in during 2019-20, but it's been going on parabolically since June 2022. And a lot of people ask where the money is going to come to double the current cryptocurrency market cap. And again, I think the bear is coming, but I think a massive bull is about to hit. And what happens in crypto is the biggest returns come sometimes near the last stages of the market when parabolic phases hit. So something like Walmart has had a parabolic phase. I'm sorry, this thing is letting me. Has had a parabolic phase for a short amount of time of 159%. That's astronomical for Walmart. But as of late, we've seen it running into the top of this gray area, which is a Fibonacci zone. These are months. These are not weeks. 1 month it hit the zone, 2 months it hit, broke above it, came back down, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in its recent earning call, it went down 5%, 6% from the top. Straight exhaustion. And what normally happens with exhaustion periods is once you've peaked out, you just kind of throttle, and then boom. I'll show you, and then you go into a bear market into the zone here. These are monthly candles. So that's what I'm looking at for Walmart. Someone like me who's looking to buy long-term downside puts, I don't have to buy the puts now. I wait for it to break down, and then I'm buying a year or two puts on them and just going to work. Don't have to be there trading like it's Forex. I'm going to take my profit. Go into something like Nvidia, which is, again, I'm taking on all the big boys. Nvidia, because there's such euphoria and optimism, Nvidia broke out of its full exhaustion area, 700%, broke out of that area 1,000%, bounced off of that area, used that area as support, and bounced now, and it's currently up 1,422%. Use the area to bounce off. So that tells you what? On the way back down, you may get a pattern that looks to be forming like a head and shoulders, boom, to come back to a 618 retracement at $47 from the current evaluations that it's at, right? This is kind of what we're looking at. And then that moves on to our Bitcoin, which again, it's not all about Bitcoin. Bitcoin gives us our indicator of all the other assets that we have, whether you're long-term like Thea and you're just kind of watching it and seeing where the best areas are for you to accumulate, or whether you are currently in and you've been in for either quite some time or short term, and you're looking at when will that exhaustion come for a Bitcoin. When you draw the same metrics on it from high to low, that exhaustion for Bitcoin comes at 215,000, but I don't have an estimation that it goes that high. Now, if we get something crazy, maybe, but what I think is left for this bull market is whatever is in this box. Whatever is in this box is whatever is left for the bull market. Bitcoin is going through a corrective period, and I think we're going to have new highs. I think we're going to have new highs, but I think it just plays around in this little bubble zone here. So what does that little bubble zone give you? Well, currently Bitcoin from the bull market went up as high as 666%. What is left, if that is the area that is playing in? What is left is about 30%. What is left is about 63%. And then you have exhaustion, right? Or you don't have to get to exhaustion to cancel out. I believe 140 to 175K is where we're at for Bitcoin. The question then is, when does that happen? Well, remember, parabolic phase, right? Things are completing their parabolic phases. And so Bitcoin is completing its parabolic phase. I think by October, November, that parabolic phase is done, meaning that yes, Bitcoin has gone up 666% over 2 years, but it can spend the next 2 months, 3 months going up 50 to 66% aggressively. Aggressively
And
after
that's
this
something that
correction.
that can be short lived. Like when it gets there, it might hover there for a bit, but like
Exactly.
it's not gonna, you know what I mean?
Exactly. So I will show you guys the Bitcoin futures there because it's just clean. I haven't drawn stuff on it. Sometimes when I have a lot of stuff on this, it's kind of hard to gauge. But I don't know if you guys remember the inverse head and shoulders that I had here from many streams ago, right? Expecting us to break out of there, broke out of it. Now we're in another bull flag. And when you have an inverse head and shoulders on big weekly candles, what happens is that then creates a bigger formation. And these are just simple formations. It creates a cup and handle. And when you correct from that handle, aggressive is what you do to get out of there. So that's what we're looking at here. Whenever this correction starts to end, and if I go to the daily, as this correction starts to end, you have the 200-week moving average on the daily at $100,000. I doubt it does that. My strongest support area for Bitcoin is $103. But if this is a bull flag, right? If this is a bull flag that we have here to possibly set off this strong move, then this price cannot go below this previous high. It cannot go below this previous low. If it does, then we have a different story going on. We have to kind of
when we're near in there, trade 100,
right?
111,
Right.
you're saying roughly.
Right. So again, the question then becomes, okay, what are the implications of Jackson Hole, right? What are the implications of Jackson Hole? What the Fed has going on, and what kind of impact are we expecting from that? The market was expecting 3 rate cuts at a 99%. I was telling my boy this, and the market still kept going up. And I'm like, whatever stays at 100%. Whatever stays at 100%. The market was pricing in 100% chance of a rate cut in September and about a 75% chance of 3 rate cuts this year. We got hot PPI numbers, and Jerome Powell has been beefing with Trump on, hey, this is what I believe and how we need to be careful. And Trump has been on his thing about, you're an idiot. Cut rates. I'm going to fire you. Okay. So Jerome Powell knows he's leaving. He's not going to change the management of what he was been doing, which is sticking to the stats. And if the stats tell us something is off, we're going to hold off. So the market has been pricing in now after 100% guesstimation that there will be a September cut. Now that we're at 75%, with some saying there will be no cut. From my point of view, I believe there will be no cut in September. I believe there will be no cut in September. And I'll show you what that will look like reflected on the charts, not the Bitcoin charts, but the S&P 500 charts, because I am very bullish on Bitcoin. I think this corrective period on Bitcoin, I think it may hold. Now, the stock market can drag Bitcoin down, right? The stock market can drag Bitcoin down. And let me just wrap up this thing I'm doing here at Bitcoin. And we could see that, 110. What is going on here? We can see, that 104 to 104 to 100. The market could drag it there. But all in all, I do believe Bitcoin is super bullish and looking to exit out of there. But I do want to show you S&P 500 and the path for that, because that's going to drag the markets down. So market got complacent. We have exhaustion going on here. Divergence, and I won't go too much geeky into these charts. Divergence is when you have RSI going down, price action going up. All right, and you have a divergence there. I'm going to exit out of this bull flag or this wedge that I drew here. So price going up, market buying pressure going down, all right, or rate of volume of buying going down. That creates divergence. I believe the S&P 500 is going to go down to the 50-week moving average at 624. That would make it from the highest here about a 4% correction. I could even see this thing going down about a 6-7% correction, enough to scare the markets, right? And then again, I am short term still bullish because I believe the S&P 500 goes back up to about 660 or 680. Before then, we have an enormous bear market crash, along with our recession, and with the possibility of coming back to touch the COVID high, the pre-COVID fall.
And how many rate cuts is this assuming?
Okay, so a lot
your
of times people assume rate cuts are bullish, rate cuts are bearish. Rate cuts are a sign from those who are running monetary policy that they need to boost the economy. Like you say all the time, Mega, the money printing is about to go crazy. They're gonna have to keep doing it. They're gonna have to keep because they're supporting the market, and it doesn't matter what president it is. So I do think that's coming, but why they react to cut rates is something wrong is happening, and that's what is going to lead us through this bear market here that we're going to. So to me, it doesn't matter how many rates they cut. Once they actually start cutting rates, bear market. So I think they avoid the September cut, or Jerome Powell signals at Jackson Hole that he doesn't know about cutting. They got to look at the stats, because we're going to have CPI in September, PPI in September. We're going to have these economic numbers. He's going to still say we're sticking to the stats, even though he may still cut in September. He's not going to give that away now. Never.
So it's assuming at least 1 year end at some point,
end,
though.
At least 1 year end, yes. And
okay.
and by that time, we've now gone past the New Year's holiday high. And I'm saying the bull market ends this year because we always get a warning before the actual bear market, so that after a blow off top, the warning is going to come. There's going to be semblances of a debt cap bounce, where New Year brings euphoria and happiness, and the market might buy it back up, and then we slam into 2026 and things get nasty.
So you're talking early 2026.
Yeah, I'm talking early 2026. And the thing is, with that, depending on how things are carrying, whatever, by the first quarter earnings calls. So first quarter is January, February, March. By April's earnings calls, let's talk about what these companies are saying and what things look like, in the ecosystem. But that's my overall basis. Very bullish. A lot of opportunity in front of us. Parabolic movements coming. The altcoins will respond to Bitcoin, making new all-time highs and breaking into those higher areas of, after this correction, breaking into those higher areas of 138, climbing into this bubble that we have here. I don't even think Bitcoin gets to exhaustion, and I've shown you many exhaustion charts. But that's kind of what I believe is happening. And I deleted my other Bitcoin because I was going to show you guys, and I think you guys have seen this before, my projection of where Bitcoin goes in the bear market, which is down here. All right, between 25,000 and 15,000. I will not budge from this, and we will address this down the line. But all in all, it was important to kind of tap into the narrative of what's going on, right? The flashy stories, the scary stories that will be magnified in the bear market, right? MNAV, what is MNAV? Your stockholders are gonna lose everything. Meanwhile, yeah, you'll have companies ready to buy the crap out of MSRT at a very cheap premium of $40 or $70 for what's to come next once we get out of this bear market. And if you're an individual, it's just up to you and what your strategy is. Pun intended, right? It's just up to you and what your strategy is. And if you don't have a strategy, then you're SOL, and you got to stop blaming other people for why you're losing money in crypto or the stock market, right? And so I go very much in depth with this because, yeah, some of us are here, some of us are certain of what we're doing, right? Some of us have been guided, throughout our life. Some of us have done a lot of research to figure out the right way to do it, but a lot of people just don't understand or are able to implement high level concepts of macro investing. And for someone like me, using either basic fundamental economic and technical knowledge to try to guide your way there. So very exciting times, a lot of funny stuff happening on Twitter, um chat GPT, Grok, throwing shit at each other. We got football season coming. We got end of the bear market.
We got
here.
Yeezy dropping a
We got
coin,
Yeezy
bro. We're
dropping
not
the
talking a
coin
lot
that's
of gambling
plugged
chain,
in.
but Solana's been a lot of fun lately, bro. They've been the butt of a few jokes, but also, I mean, you still see a lot of. I mean, it's the crime chain. I'm not gonna lie to you, but you see some crazy figures dropping coins, sending them to $1 billion market caps. And you see a lot of profits still being made on those chains, but I try to stay away. I try not to gamble on there anymore.
No, I'm on there. You guys know.
Yeah.
I'm on, and I'm
What's
only
the
there
update?
for.
What's the
I'm only
fart girl
there for
update?
two. I'm only there for two reasons. I'm only there for two reasons, and that is for Fart Boy and Fart Girl. You guys know I will not budge on my sentiments. On that. And look, I don't want to shamelessly plug. I am somebody who I always promote doing the safe thing and riding the same wave. And I've been an XRP guy forever. I use Bitcoin as my indicator. I'm like Feet. I just sell. You know what I'm saying? Like I
For the record, I do take some profits. I do it around options though, but we don't have to get into all of that right now.
No, I like messing with you because the way you do your options also too is amazing. You know what I'm saying? I'm not holding actual assets, so I'm not able to use that other side of leveraging, which actually has higher percentage returns, higher percentage basic returns that are just beautiful. But yeah, if I'm playing with the memes, on Solana, it's gotta be Fart Boy and Fart Girl, and they are at such premiums. And you know what I can say to you guys to prove this, and we can move on after this. I'm going to show you guys why there's proof behind my pudding, right? So we've seen while the market's been going down, a lot of things correcting. I just showed you MicroStrategy, right? 27% over time. Bitcoin is down about 7%. The market's being rocked right now. And what do we have going on in Fart Boy? Fart Boy has maintained this low. Actually, in the same time period, right? August 11th, 12th, 13th. The market's been correcting actually since just the 15th, actually. Market really started correcting since the 15th. And if we take the percentage on Fart Boy from the 15th, it's done about 11%. In meme coin world, let's look at other meme coins. The actual
some are down 60, some are down 70.
Right. And when you look at something like Fart Boy, all right, on a Solana ecosystem, been there for a while now, shown the ability to have spike, found the baseline. This is what I do with charts. If I didn't see serious technical basis in Fart Boy, I would not be looking at memes at all. I don't talk about memes at all. But if you're gonna play, Solana's still gonna do what Solana does. Again, I'm bearish long term, but bullish short term. Solana, AVAX, what you gonna call it? What Sui that Mega is big on. We're gonna look at Sui in a hot minute as well.
Good call. I want to get your ideas on.
And look, if you're in the chat again, always if you have some sort of, and shout out to the chat, we got two noobs in the building.
Two noobs.
If you're in the chat and you got a particular chart where you're like, yo, I think this thing is fire. I think this meme coin or this token, I think it's fire. Throw it in there. We'll take a quick look at it. But Fart Boy hasn't budged. And now this is the weekly chart. So we've had since the highs, we've had that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. I'm going to leave you guys with this last caveat because I think, when Thee had switched over some of his other trash bags, I had mentioned getting into Fart Boy Fart Girl, and I listen. It's still there. It's still there. let's see. So yeah, I'm not gonna shill it too much. Look, Kanye dropped this coin and it's down 90%.
Yeah. But it
Instantaneously.
was some crime on chain, bro. It went from there was one
Jesus.
wallet who bought 750K. They sold at the Pico top 3 billion. What is it? Is it under $1 billion yet? Because I thought it would. And this is something I'm also getting into a lot. You have to travel overseas rapidly, I will say, with whatever technology you can do so with. Hyperliquid. We don't talk about Hyperliquid enough, but you can leverage a lot of these new drops. You can go 3x leverage and short the fuck out of these celebrity coins immediately after. Maybe not immediately because it did run to 3 billion. I will give it credit there, but that's crime, bro. That's a lot of crime on chain, legal crime on chain.
Yeah, I mean, like shorting is that's leverage again.
Yeah, you can go on leverage though immediately after one of those hype launches. I mean,
leverage that's being built in the ecosystem at some point when it
dangerous.
flushes, and it will flush. Everybody's in trouble. Now, I use a similar. There's an app called Mass, and it's actually built on Hyperliquid, and it's one of the only ones available in New York that allows.
What's it called again? I'm sorry.
Mass.
I'll
send it to you guys, and it's beautiful. You can set stop losses. You can leverage Bitcoin at 40x. You can leverage XRP at 20x, and it's available in New York. The one and only one that's available in New York.
That's rare.
And yeah, so I've been on it slowly using it to build an asset called CRV that I'm actually bullish on. But I've been able to kind of play with it in that fashion using the charts, and it hasn't been available. So I've been pretty excited about that. And it was built on Hyperliquid. It's crazy.
Yeah. They do say one of the biggest indicators of like quote unquote a depression is hyper gambling, less and less alcohol consumption, both of which are true right now. You see the likes of Robinhood, they just brought prediction markets. FanDuel just brought crypto. I had to look this up. I didn't even think it was real.
Deposits.
FanDuel has they might already have that. I'm not sure, but they did launch crypto futures on fucking FanDuel, bro.
That's wild.
That's wild. Bro.
That's wild.
Well, I did not you can bet sports events on crypto.com.
Yeah, you could like.
Look at Polymarket. Look at Polymarket.
It's crazy.
Anyways.
Absolutely wild. But yes, that building of leverage, again, it has a lot of opportunity, but on the downside, which is coming, it's gonna be a bloodbath. Now, I am somebody who can benefit from the up and the downside. So I'm super excited because I try to plan for the trend that's coming, not the trend that I'm in. Right. And again, as a macro person, if betting on the bear can help me accumulate my assets for the bull and I can live my regular life, possibly my regular job, that's the goal. And every time you go through a cycle to try to execute on that, the like with any sport, you should be looking to get better and better and better at that. So speaking of SUI and leverage, I just checked it out, right? It had a high of about $15. Right now,
about pull that chart back up just so the people can see as well.
Oh, let's see. Thanks for the heads up on there. And I hate it when this thing makes the screen small. What did I just do? I'm gonna switch
find a good one. Let me see if I can find one for us.
And also, too, I got a curve monitor, so that might be a part of it.
I think that does us in a little bit with a curve monitor.
It's so good. It's so good. Let's see here. I'm going to do what I can. So we kind of hung out around $1.30. Is that in market cap? That's a market cap. I don't need it in market cap. I need it in the actual. It's SUI, right?
Yeah.
So why do they only have
can't see too close on your screen? So I'm no help right now.
Yeah, it's all good. I'm about to zoom in on it.
I think you have to do like SUI USDT or something. If you do SUI slash.
Yeah, I'm using TradingView. I think I'm gonna just try to use Dex Screener.
Okay. Yeah.
Like SUI is not something that like I always look at or I constantly chart. So USDCSC here. This might not be it. Yeah, this is it actually. Let's see how it looks here. Okay. Can you guys see the chart itself?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I haven't looked at this in quite some time. I'm not using my favorite trading views, so I won't be able to go crazy on it. But
I do have
Sui,
it. Do you want to use Trading View? Because I'll link you the right one. We can do
no,
it
it's all
real
good. This works just
quick.
fine. This works just fine. I have lows of about $1.20 here, $1.40 here. And then I have highs here of about, is that $4.69? Mega, does that sound about right?
Yeah, it sounds right.
Yeah. So it's about a $34 billion market cap. You know what market cap Fart Boy is? About 18 million. And Fart Girl is about 1.2 million. So I I I think Sui might actually have like a actual, like, in crypto ecosystems that are able to capture development, because it seems like people are developing on this. So this might be a long term bag or something. If like it were to pan out for like taking profit from, but for something that's a $31 billion market cap, you know, how much higher
Mhm.
is it gonna go in this
True.
phase, of the last stages of the market? However, even regardless, with that being said, we're still able to calculate possible price actions, and it looks like it got rejected at $4.78 at the 1.6 Fibonacci area. A full exhaustion for this has it come into about $8.68. But what the current chart looks like is actually pretty bearish. And we're looking at the weekly here. It would need to find support here at $3.30. With the way the current market is going, I do still think we're finishing a corrective period. And usually when price corrects, this kind of actually looks like what I showed you on Bitcoin, where you had a little bit of a bull flag, right? A bull flag that's trying to form on Sui. And I'll draw this one here. You have a little bull flag that's trying to form on Sui, and it got rejected, right? So it could simply just come to touch the bottom of this bull flag and then make its way here and do this, right? In order to get out of the current phase that it's in. It doesn't mean that it's
Okay.
bearish.
Yeah.
It just means that, like, some people sometimes want like instantaneous things, and you're not gonna get instantaneous. It's gonna take it to build some strength. And so right now, Sui looks weak. It looks like from $3.42, it can probably go down if it touches these next two fibs about another 8-10%. Right.
Hmm.
So if your average is near there, or if you're trying to scoop more cheaper, then you'd be happy about this move if you think this is a bull flag. And for someone like me who thinks the market is going to bounce again, I think that opportunity is there for that to pop out. And from there, even from where it's at right now, you have a possibility of 151% return. 151% return from where it's at now. If you average yourself into the possible correction, which is down here between these two fibs, like I said, at around $3, it's 180% possible opportunity of return, right? So you're picking a safer thing that you're picking the one that everybody in the market is looking at. It has a very high market cap, and even at 181%, that's a 2x market cap. It could be sitting at a 369, $100 billion market cap by the time it hits this. I mean, you that's ginormous, right? But that's why you're not getting a much higher return on the possible highest upside of this mover.
Now to close it out, one of my other kind of end of bull run plays here for myself is hype. A similar market cap, 13 billion as of today, about 13 and a half. If you had the choice of only one of those two, you don't have to dive into the full hype chart, but you're welcome to. What would you feel between? Because I personally see a lot more built on hype, and that's just my personal opinion.
Right.
However, similar market caps, of course, different prices, but similar market caps. What's your thesis there?
Yeah, hype looks corrective. Hype definitely looks corrective right off the bat. So it looks like worst case scenario $28, so $29, so like a $10 correction from where it's at right now. This area could hold too. At the top of this move here, this area can hold too. at $37, but it looks corrective with the rest of the market. If and when it bounces, if you measure from that same corrective period, it looks like hype could be. Let me delete this here. Looks like hype could be looking at $92 at the highs. So, again, let's say that the corrective period continues to go on. Let me switch this here. Then, from the highs here, 143%. Right. So again, there could be overextensions, but that's just the area where it's either going to sit there for a while having trouble moving past it, or if it blows past it, it's going to be a blow off top to come right back to try to meet it, to meet the range. And so, these are things that are going to be like hit names that are going to bring some sort of movement, going to bring some sort of profit. But at $13 billion market cap, again, it looks like it could double, or double and a half, to about a $30 billion market cap. The cryptocurrency space is supposed to double itself. So the assets doubling to their exhaustion is just like the quickest, simple math that I can do. There obviously could be more things, but if the entire cryptocurrency market is supposed to double, and altcoins are supposed to get some of those resources, what assets and what price action are they doing? One thing I'll show you really quickly when you're trying to gauge exhaustion before we wrap this up. I'm just going to pick a random, not a random, but like one specific crypto that, or actually two. Ethereum, which I think about in March, when it went down here, I called it. Ethereum, if you're looking at it, I think has a much higher rate of return. First of all,
Ethereum's been great recently, especially.
Right. From the lows, and let me see from the lows, it's had a 245% run.
And how quick has that been, bro? Because it felt like we were just at 2000s.
There you go. So when I talk about parabolic, right? When I talk about parabolic, that's what's happening. And Ethereum is showing what that looks like. Ethereum could go, and again, remember we talked about not going all the way to exhaustion. Ethereum could do $10,000 very easily. That's a 600% return, right? Even if it goes to the 8,000, that's a 471% return. When you look at something like VeChain, right? Underlining even Link, right? Let's look at Link real quick. And I can look at all these all day. I've already guesstimated Link's upside.
I love Link, bro.
Right. From the lows, 4,000%. You know what I'm saying? Oof. From where it's at right now to like, let's say the second layer of exhaustion, 600%. Things like VeChain that have yet to make their moves, right? This VeChain is a long-standing crypto that has yet to make its move. It has about a 2,000 to 400% chance of move, and it's only about 2 cents. So you can grab a bunch of it, and if a bunch of small price asset goes up 2,004%, game changer, right? And so those are some of the assets that I look at. I like the assets that you brought up. I've always thought about Sui, and the fact that a leverage platform that I use was built through Hyperliquid, it makes me want to look closer at those assets. Yeah,
I do like those. Those are just a few, but hey, bro, we're coming up on the time. We want to keep this for about an hour for the people. It looks like we lost T Heat as well, so we will continue this talk next week. More macro. We got a lot of time here, folks. I do believe from especially what Trade said, I think it confirms a few things I was feeling. I don't have as much of a feel for the markets as much as Trade does. So I love to confirm it with your market sentiment.
He's telling people they should have sold. This guy is so irresponsible, man.
Hey, man, he's funny, though. So I'll be honest. He's damn funny, though.
Yeah, he is. But this was good. I wanted to drop this tonight, leave this tonight. May not be able to stream as much, and I like to put my projections out there, and then kind of see how they pan out. I enjoy having these conversations with you guys. Anybody that shows up that takes any value from here, make sure to put a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. And guys, we'll see you on the next one, and we'll see where the charts are, where the markets are, where the sentiments are. But we'll put it out there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, indeed. And you can do with that information as you will. You know, we're all hoping to make it in this crypto scene. It's a lot to take in. So we're just giving you our touch of the treasure here where we can. So for T-Heat, for the Legendary Trade Room, my name's Mega. This is Orange Energy. This is the Jewelers Guild, baby. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.